want to see what it's like to try to work with some of this alpaca that I sent you. This is some alpaca wool that somebody took home and washed, and I'm gonna just give it a go. We'll see how it goes, and maybe you'll want to try it with yours. I think that a lot of these fibers are awfully short, but some of them might be long enough to work with, and I'm just gonna, let's just see how it is. I want a kind of a mixed color here. Also, if you know, these are just dog brushes that I bought from a pet store, and they're not terribly expensive, but they're a little bit more than I could spend to buy enough for everybody. But also, I've heard that at a Weaver's Yarn, they have a drum carder like the woman with the Angora rabbits had, and I've heard that they might even let you rent it or just give it a try in the store. So that's another idea, you know, if you want. I might have put a little too much on here, but let's see, I think that's too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and card this alpaca, and then I'm gonna try to join it to what I've been spinning on my spindle. Oh, it's so soft. This is so soft. All right, now just like she did with the Angora, I kind of got a lot on both of these, but I'm gonna try to, I'll just use one at first. I'll do her little trick here. This Angora, or this alpaca, is harder to work with just because it's so soft too. A lot of times softer yarns, the softer the yarn, the more difficult it tends to be to work with. Even though it's nice to work with, it feels good, it's just trickier to work with. So I'm making this little bundle. All right, let's see how that goes. So the fibers are kind of going in one direction. I don't know if I've done this very well, but we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and break that off and see if I can add this in. Now, I've also heard that it's good actually to kind of, with alpaca, to try to spin it with another fiber. So really leaving the wool in there might have been a better idea than trying to spin it without anything else, but let's just see what happens. It's spinning. Ooh, that's pretty, isn't it? I like that, the two colors together. I always love adding another color. All right, so if you are inclined to try spinning your alpaca, you are perfectly welcome to. And I totally encourage it because it's really fun to, whoops, all right, ooh, there, I got a nice thin little bit of yarn. Look at how thin that is. Wow. Now alpaca, you might notice it's a little furrier. When I have my sheep, these fibers kind of stick against the yarn a little bit more, and alpaca tends to be a little hairier there. So if you've ever, I used to have an alpaca sweater. I always felt like I had a hair in my mouth because it was a little bit furry like that, and it always had these little tiny fibers kind of as a halo around it. So I'm noticing that this is trickier because for one thing, I have not carded this very well. And it's just it's a slippery fiber. So it doesn't have the same amount of, like, I think you would call it a tooth that the wool has, and it wants to slip right out of my hands. So that makes it harder to begin with. But, you know, people who live in Peru and have lots of alpaca, they learn how to spin using alpaca wool, and they're really, really good at it. And so it's not like you can't learn how to spin on any fiber. You can learn on anything, but it's a little easier to learn with a nice toothy wool than it is with this slippery, slidey alpaca. Oh, I like that though. That's beautiful. So I just pulled another little bit off of my carder, and you notice that it's not long enough to, it's a little bit hard to roll, but I'm gonna try and roll it. I'm doing this with one hand because I think that makes it a little bit easier to hold on to. Okay, so now I'm gonna add a little bit more. I'll show you how I do that. So I'm just gonna lay that on top. So they're both in my hand, and I know that there's a lot of fuzzy here. I'm just gonna pinch that a little bit, and hopefully, yep, it's starting to suck it right in. Draft and spin. And I'm seeing I still have a lot of twist down there, so I'm going to draft and spin a bit more. Some of the, as you use your alpaca like this, if you decide to do that, some of these hairs are going to be really, really short, because when this alpaca was shorn, it was just getting a haircut. Nobody really had plans to spin the wool. And then I came along and asked if I could have it. And so it wasn't really shorn very well for spinning, but it is working. So go ahead and give it a try if you are so inclined, if you feel like that's something you want to give a try. And it'll be fun to have, and when we're done, we're gonna have a nice little ball of yarn that we can knit something with. And what's really fun is when you have yarn it's different as you go. You know, it starts as one thing and then it turns into a different color or even a different fiber. So it'll be really fun to have a little ball of yarn we can work with. And if you sent your alpaca wool back to me, and you'd like it back now that you see how much fun I'm having, just let me know.